Hello and welcome back to Bits and Bytes. Today I'm going to show you how you can use Python to scrape data from Reddit. What we're going to be answering is the question, what were the top 10 most popular questions asked in the data science subreddit in the past year? And so you might be asking yourself, why do I care? Why do I need to know how to scrape data from Reddit? I can just go to Reddit on my app and see the things. I'm glad that you asked because it's actually really interesting. Reddit's been in the news a lot recently, especially because of everything that's happened with Wall Street Bets and the GameStop stock. And it's really amazing what happened when this community came together with a like goal and all acted towards that goal. They accomplished a lot. But how does this all tie together to scraping data? Well, if you think about the stock market and you think about predicting stock prices, there are companies that get paid a lot of money that, their goal is to, try and forecast what the stock market is going to do. And with traditional forecasting methods, you're typically going to use a model that in one way or another incorporates past performance to predict future performance. So if the stock price was $4 yesterday and $3 the day before, the stock price today is probably or tomorrow I should say, is probably going to be between $4 and $5. So it's trending upwards. We're using that past behavior to predict future behavior. The problem is what these models don't account for is the human element. What are people going to do? If people don't buy or sell stocks, then the prices aren't going to change. Well, oversimplification. But in essence, how do you control for that human element? And what these big time consulting companies do is they basically go out to Twitter and they go out to Reddit and they scrape massive amounts of this text data and they put it together and they feed it into an NLP, natural language processing model. And with that model, they're able to identify human sentiment. And once you know what the human sentiment is, you can use that to control for the human element in these predictive models and these forecasting models. And so, there's political campaigns, that do this. If you watched the Netflix Great Hack thing, they talked about it a little bit on there. But it is very legitimate data science work, and it does happen. And it sounds like this big complicated thing, but it's really not. And I'm going to show you that even with a beginner Python skill set, you have the ability and the skill to go out and scrape that data. Maybe in a future video, we'll use some of that data to build a sentiment analysis model and just see what we can do with that. But in this video, we're going to go on ahead and get started with the Python Reddit API, and we'll show you how to scrape that data, and we'll answer those questions we talked about in the beginning. So again, don't forget, like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Also, before we get started, I just want to mention that the Google Colab notebook is available to download, and it's in the description below. So if you just click on that link, you can download the notebook to your computer, you can save it in your drive, and you can follow along as we go through these exercises. And you can also, save it if it's, code that you want to be able to reference back to in the future. All right, so what are we going to be doing today? Today, we are going to use the Reddit API to scrape data from the data science subreddit. Once we have that data, we're going to do some basic manipulation and analysis on it so that we can find out in the past year what were the top 10 questions that were asked in the data science subreddit. So first of all, it's helpful to know what an API is. An API, for short, is Application Programming Interface, and it essentially will allow you to use a language like Python or JavaScript to write some basic code that will interface with an application like Reddit or Twitter, for example. And so in this example, the way that we're going to be interfacing with that application is by using the API to scrape data. But you can use the API for so much more. You can use it to send upvotes, you can use it to send Reddit coins, you can create new topics, you can comment on topics. You basically can use the application to you can use the API to fully interface with the application like you would from the actual Reddit app or Reddit website. So it's pretty cool stuff. I've linked the documentation here, and taking a quick look at that, there's a quick start section that lists some prerequisites. You need to know a little bit of Python to use PRAW. you need some basic Reddit knowledge. You have to know what subreddits are and topics are and things like that. It makes sense. You need a Reddit account, and then you need some authentication tokens. So I'll show you how to get these authentication tokens set up, and then we'll go through some examples, and I'll explain to you how the code works for how we're interfacing with the API. Now, the really cool thing about this documentation is it's really thorough, and after I go through my examples with you, I am very confident that you will be able to return back to this documentation and do so much more. You'll be able to do pretty much anything that's listed in this documentation as functionality with this API once we go through this video and you have an understanding of how to simply write code or interface with this API. So we're going to go on ahead and jump right in, starting with installing the API. Let's go on ahead and install PRAW first of all. So this first line is going to get it installed in Google Colab, and then we have additional options for installing in other environments. Once it's installed, we're going to import it, and I've already actually installed it, so we're good to go there. Now we're going to get credentials to log in. Click on this link, it's in the notebook. You'll click on Are you a developer? Create an app. Whatever you want to call the app, it doesn't matter. I've gone through this once before, so it's going to have some information saved here. And the only thing that does matter is the redirect field. So you just want it to have this localhost 8080. It's the only important field there. Click on Create App. It will give you some credentials here. And I'm going to leave this stuff up. I don't think that there's any risk for like the public out there having access to it, but regardless, after this video, I'm going to delete the app. So you're not going to be able to do anything malicious with this if there's any kind of risk for that, I'm not sure. All right, so once we get our credentials, we want to log into the app. I've provided this sample code here, and this sample code is also the same code that they provide you basically in the documentation. So you can copy and paste that code in. You put your client ID here. So your client ID, we go back to the app page. It's this right here, right? This little guy right here. We paste that. Oh. Is there a space there? No, no space. Your client secret, that's this token. I don't know why they don't call it a password. Maybe some weird programming thing that I'm not privy to. But your secret goes right here, and then your user agent, that is the name, and we'll just paste that here. Run that code. Now we're logged in. All right, so let's go on ahead and check out some hot submissions in a given subreddit. And hot is, it's just standard Reddit terminology. It's kind of like trending, sort of. There's controversial, new, rising, top. These are the different ways that you can kind of filter out or filter through different types of topics or submissions in Reddit. So we're going to start with hot, and to do this, there's a couple different ways. I'm going to give you a couple different examples as well to show you how you can write this code so that it works. But basically, for us, we're going to point to the subreddit datascience, and we're going to call hot, and we're going to limit it to 10 results, and then we're assigning that to the object subs, like submissions, subs, and then we're going to loop over that. And so we're going to say for submission in subs, print the submission title. Now, we haven't talked a lot about loops yet, but loops, basically, this terminology here doesn't matter. It's basically your item that you're, just like a placeholder for what you're iterating over. So a lot of people will do like for I in subs, print I.title, or they'll spell it out. That's pretty common as well. Point being, it doesn't matter, what you use here. What matters is this item here. So this is what you're iterating over, and then this is the output of that. So you can do I, you can do iter, you can do submission, whatever you call this, it doesn't matter. All right. So, and then you can see it prints out the top 10 hot submissions in the data science subreddit. So we've got a pinned thing here, official 2020 year-end salary, a weekly, probably another pinned thread. Why did Python become the language of choice? Best data camp courses. And, there you go. All right, so next what we're going to look at is the top submissions in the past year. And I told you that I was going to give you a couple of different ways that you can write this code, and then you can kind of choose whichever way makes the most sense for you, whatever's most interpretable for you. And so we'll expand this accordion, and so this code it's very similar to the code that we had above. I've just written it two different ways here. And instead of calling the hot submissions, we're going to call the top submissions. And instead of limiting to the top 10 results, we're going to look in a time frame of the past year. And I think if I remember in the documentation correctly, this can be like the past month, the past day. I think you can even do like the past hour. But we're just going to look back in the past year because that's basically what we're filtering down to. We're going to look at the top questions, top 10 questions eventually in the data science subreddit in the past year. And so in option 1 here, we're using the same format that we had before, where first we create an object and then we loop over that object. In option 2, we're going to get the exact same result, but instead of looping over an object that we created, we're going to loop through the actual query. And so the output is a little bit different here. So I'm just showing you that instead of just getting your title, which isn't of much value. I mean, it's interesting. We can see the titles. But instead of just getting the title, we can also get the number of comments. We'll consider that as engagement. And we can also see the score. And the score is just your, it's like your upvotes, So that's what they call score. And so if we run this, there we go. We can see there are a lot of results, and it automatically, it's giving us the top results, and so it's automatically filtering top down, and we can see the number 1 result is has the title of Data Science, 75, what did that say, comments, and then 3,000 upvotes. So my guess is that's probably a meme. I'm not sure, probably a meme. We can see the next one, shout out to all the mediocre data scientists out there, 260 comments, 3,000 upvotes, so a lot more engagement. I guess there's a lot of people that resonate with being a mediocre data scientist. They wanted to talk about it. It's never too early. My guess is that's some kind of motivational story about an older guy or gal who got into data science. I got 59 comments, 3,000 upvotes. People really appreciated that story, I guess. And yeah, it goes on. So we can compare these results to these results, and slightly different code, but it accomplishes the same thing. And so you can choose whichever option works best for you, whichever option is most interpretable for you, whether you create the object and loop over that object, or whether you just loop over the actual query. All right, so we are going to suppress that output just to get it out of the way. So up until this point, all we've done is print the results, and we can't really do anything with that data except for view it when it's printed in our output here. And so we want to get that data into a format that can be manipulated, and Pandas DataFrame is a very manipulatable, if that's even a word. It's a very manipulatable format, and so we want to get that data into a Pandas DataFrame. So we're going to import pandas as PD, and this is standard nomenclature in the industry. So if you do import pandas, just call it PD. It's basically just a nickname for pandas, so that anytime you call pandas, you can just type PD instead of having to type out pandas. And then I'm actually going to comment this out because I want to show you what it does. So I'll circle back to that. These are all individual lines of code. They don't like all run together until we get into our loop here. But we're creating an object called subreddit, and that subreddit is the data science subreddit. And then we are creating a loop, and we're saying for post in subreddit, so data science, hot, limit 1000. So we're going to get 1000 results. And then we're creating a data frame here. And that data frame is going to have the post title, the score, the link, the number of comments, and then basically the message body. So we're going to go on ahead and run that. And we're going to get this warning. I think that this warning, it's probably because I'm running this in Colab. If you're running it in Colab, you'll get these warnings as well. If you run this code in just Jupyter Notebook on your local machine, you probably won't get the warnings, but unless if you set up async PRAW, which I haven't yet, you're going to get that warning. So nothing to worry about. Just if you do this a lot, you would want to do it the right way. And all right, so this is our result. So we can see there's 507 rows by 5 columns. We've got the post title, score, link, comments, and message body. And depending on what you're doing with your data, what you're doing for your analysis, this is helpful, but it's only so helpful because we can't see really everything that is relevant here. And in many instances, so if you're building like a predictive model, for example, you're not so concerned with seeing the individual values. You're going to do some exploratory data analysis, and you're going to create some plots, and those plots are going to visualize what's happening in your data. You'll have, oftentimes way too much data to worry about looking through each record line by line. And so, it doesn't matter that it kind of shrinks things down and cuts things off. The data is there, it's just not displayed for us to see. For this exercise though, and at least while I am in the exploratory data analysis phase of a project, I do like to see what's in the columns, or what's within each feature. And I like to see it because it just helps me initially to understand what's happening in the data. And for this example, it's going to be helpful to see it all too. And so that's what this line of code up here does. We're saying set the option for pandas that the max column width is none. So we're removing the preset parameter within pandas that gives us a fixed column width. And now it's going to remove that maximum column width, and it's going to display everything in the data frame in every column. You're going to see that this isn't something that you would necessarily want to do with like a massive data set. And the reason why is because it can blow up and get big like really fast. But here we go. So now we can actually see the title, we can see the full link, we can see the message body, and this is it's kind of it's nice. You can kind of like read through it, and again, it really depends on what you're doing, why or whether you need to do this or not. But what we're going to be doing, I want to jump ahead. What we're going to be doing is finding the top 10 questions in the past year, and so it'll be helpful to see whether or not what we're looking at is an actual question. All right, so that's that. Moving on to the next section, finding all of the questions topics. And this is, we're going to leverage regular expressions for this. And we haven't really leveraged regular expressions yet, but I'll give you just kind of a brief overview. In this instance, it basically is going to let us identify all of our topics that end with a question mark. So that's basically what's happening here. We're saying create data frame 1 from our original data frame, where in the title field it ends with a question mark. And again, we're keeping that and assigning it to the object df1. Is this perfect? No. Why isn't it perfect? Because if there are topics, for example, that are in fact questions, but the user didn't end it with a question mark, this isn't going to pick those up. So for what we're doing here, not a big deal, but if you wanted to be super accurate, you could do some more and sentence structure analysis and really figure out what all questions exist in our data set even if they aren't labeled with a question mark at the end. So anyways, that was a kind of long, drawn out explanation, but when we run it, you'll see what happens. Now, we can see that we have all questions, and we still have their score, and we still have the URL and the number of comments, and then the message body. And this is good. This is a good starting point. Now we want to get the top 10 questions, and how you do this, how you determine what the top 10 questions are. I included the score and I included the number of comments because I think those are going to be the two most important factors. And for saying like what the top questions are. You can go by number of comments, which would be engagement, how many people were really interested in that question and it sparked a conversation. Or you can go by score, which is just your upvotes and how many people thought that question had some value, so they gave it a quick upvote. And I think that what we ended up going with was score. Yep. So we are using the sort values command from pandas. And nice thing, we got this, little like help dialog that pops up when you highlight things in Colab. But either way, DataFrame 1, we're sorting values. We're sorting by the score variable. And this, by default, sorts ascending. So it would give us a bunch of scores starting with 0 first, low scored items. So it sorts ascending. So it'd be like 0, 0, 0 for the top 10. We want it to be descending, so we're basically just going to put in this option, ascending equals false. And then we are going to take data frame 1 and basically output the title, score, comments, message body, and just give us the head and request the top 10. So let's run that. And there we go. We have the top 10 questions from our data science subreddit in the past year. And let's take a look at a couple of these questions. How many of you are hybrids of data analyst, data scientist, and data engineer? So I got 577 upvotes, 141 comments. I guess a lot of people resonate with that. I think it's pretty accurate. In many cases, you do wear many different hats. I think in a larger corporation, you're going to be more specialized. You're going to be more siloed. The analyst is going to do more raw analytical work. The data scientist is oftentimes going to be focused on the predictive modeling or forecasting side of things. And then the data engineer, ensures the data is moving through pipelines the way that it should be. But, that's a larger corporation. If you're working for a startup or a smaller business, you might just be a data scientist who does all of these things. So, it just depends. Would anyone be interested in a soft data science series? We've got 571 upvotes, 96 comments. So I guess there is a lot of interest in people within the data science world improving their soft skills. There's definitely some value in that. You need to be able to communicate with upwards, downwards, left and right within an organization, the results of your analysis and research, and having those soft skills can prove to be invaluable for that. Does anyone get annoyed when people say AI will take over the world? 514 upvotes, 344 comments. I think that's the best engagement yet. 344 comments. Is that the most? And yeah, it is. I guess a lot of people feel annoyed when people say AI will take over the world. I don't know, maybe it's just me. A lot of friends that are not in data science, and a lot of them say AI is bad, job destruction. They don't know what machine learning is, and they always say AI this, AI that. I don't know. Thought I'd see if anyone else feels the same. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's funny. I honestly try not to engage in conversations about analytics with people who aren't familiar with analytics, just because you end up having conversations like this. how hard data science actually is. How hard is data science actually? How hard is data science? Well, apparently grammar isn't a requirement for engagement and popularity on Reddit. I guess I'd go as far as to say in the data science subreddit, even more so. We're not so concerned with your grammar as much as we are with the accuracy and predictive power of your models. Interesting. How much of data science is lying? I just saw my old company post a seminar they held. I won't name shame, and it was a project I witnessed and gave input on. The head of the project never validated a model, large biases were made, and the use of k-means clustering with binary data. Maybe this worked, and I don't know the true results, but this is a grossly incompetent error in data science. Is there more of this? Because this is scary. Is data science becoming just a nice wrapper on intuitive insights that a domain expert could guess? This guy is fuming. Don't get in his way. He's a bulldozer, a wrecking ball. He's going to take some people down with him. Anyways, so that basically sums up what we wanted to cover today. You can do a lot with this, and as even I was going through this exercise, I was thinking of a really interesting analysis that I might do for a future video. But it was regarding this. So you can, within this PRAW documentation, you can extract comments. Comment extraction and parsing, they actually have a tutorial for it. And I think that it would be really interesting to take this thread, which has 237 comments. I would expect that to be higher, actually. It's a little disappointing. But the 2020 year-end salary thread, 237 comments, and see if, from those comments, we can extract salary data and, generate an interesting analysis based off of the salary data from those comments. Anyways, a lot you can do with it. It's a lot of fun. Honestly, it's a little more interesting, if you ask me, than data types, which we will be circling back to in next week's video. But I just had to get something out there that maybe was a little bit more interesting for you and a little bit more interesting for me. Talking about data types was putting me to sleep and probably putting you to sleep as well, even though it is necessary. So hope you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. So now you know how to scrape data from Reddit using Python. And I hope that you realized as we were going through that exercise that it's not as difficult as it might seem to get that data in a workable format in Python. There's a lot that you can do with it. It's really interesting stuff, especially with how NLP has really advanced over the last few years. So if you enjoyed the video, go on ahead, like and subscribe. If there's any future content that you'd like to see, leave it in the comments below. And again, this is Bits and Bytes, where we provide you with bits of analytics content in bite-sized chunks.